It's Friday, September 29. In the headlines, up to $1 million in fines for breach of curfew. 18,000 flu vaccines now available. In business news, Finance Minister tables third supplementary estimates. Regionally, the government of Trinidad and Tobago identifies local fashion industry as a catalyst for economic diversification. Internationally, warnings from U.S. President as Joe Biden outlines threats to democracy. And in sports, we take a look at Esports, plus Canada's women rugby team was in Jamaica this week. Our news team spoke with the captain. In entertainment news, a joint EP and a documentary. This is the Weekend News on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. It's flu season, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness is encouraging persons to protect themselves against the virus. To that end, 18,000 doses of flu vaccines are now available in the public health system. The vaccines were purchased by the Ministry of Health and Wellness through the Pan American Health Organization's revolving fund for access to vaccines. Director of Health Services, Planning and Integration, Dr. Nadine Williams, speaking at the post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House this week, said that the vaccine is being offered free of cost to a number of high-priority groups.
Health workers, children and elderly with chronic illnesses, pregnant women, individuals who are institutionalized in or in state care, and are non-health frontline workers. Although we have prioritized these groups, it is important to note that no one will be refused the flu vaccine in our public facilities.
The flu is an acute viral infection that spreads easily from person to person, mainly by coughing, sneezing, and through close contact. Symptoms include fever, chills, sore throat, muscle aches, fatigue, cough, headache, runny or stuffy nose. The House of Representatives passed the Law Reform, Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Amendment Bill this week. The legislation was designed with the goal of facilitating social transformation and community development measures that would enhance public order. Currently, Mount Salem, Denham Town, August Town, Greenwich Town, Norwood, Parade Gardens and sections of Savannah Lamar are designated zones of special operations. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang piloted the bill on Tuesday.
Through the Joint State Committee mechanism, we undertook a comprehensive stakeholder-informed review of the legislation, the report of which was tabled in Parliament in January 2022. The work of the Joint Select Committee enabled us to design a more robust and relevant bill as responsive to our current social, cultural, and economic dynamics of those who reside in these volatile communities.
Dr. Chang explains that these OZOs are now in the build phase.
3 are in the build phase, the other 4 are still in the hold phase, and I know that the Jamaica Social Investment Fund is looking at the required budget to expand that build phase into other years, but not only into the other 4 zones, but based on the long-standing socio-economic survey by the Planning Institute of Jamaica and the continued review and by the continued monitoring by the police, Jamaica Constitutional Force of the violence data and other factors that affect the social environment in many communities, and having a good knowledge of the physical infrastructure of our challenged communities, we intend that this should be expanded to a number of areas across Jamaica.
Regarding some of the amendments, the bill proposes in Clause 4 to increase the initial timeline in which the zone is declared to be in force from a period of not exceeding 60 days to 180 days.
Madam Speaker, allows more time for the social intervention objectives to be realized and provide a more sustainable environment for the maintenance of law and order. in the first 180 days, which is clear, and beginning of the whole, much of some of the soft intervention can begin. Take a little while longer to get to the longer term.
The legislation also proposes that an offence be introduced for the breach of a curfew without reasonable excuse, which could go up to $1 million. $1.094 trillion. That's the total amount of the nation's planned expenditure with the tabling of the third supplementary estimates for the fiscal year 2023-2024. Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, tabled the documents in the House of Representatives this week. Dr. Clark pointed out that $480 million has been allocated to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, of which $400 million is for the social housing and $80 million for the support of trucking of water by the National Water Commission to drought-stricken areas.
$420 million to the Ministry of Local Government, of which $100 million for the cleanup of town centres, $200 million for community roads, $120 million for indigent housing, and $60 million for the trucking of water. $200 million to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security for the provision of compassionate grants, $260 million to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries for farm roads, $126 million to the Ministry of Culture, Gender and Sport, including $31.5 million, Madam Speaker, to support the development of sports and cultural program for youth, and $50.9 million to support the establishment of a GIS regional office in St. Thomas.
He says funds have been allocated to support compensation restructure payments for central government agencies, as well as the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, the JUTC.
Which includes $472 million to the JUTC, $345 million to the University Hospital, $395 million to the Caribbean Maritime University, $120 million to the Tourism Enhancement Fund, and $107 million to the Ministry of Health agencies.
The Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House will consider and report on the estimates on October 4. In the extended business report with Danita Rodney, she'll tell us more about the tabled third supplementary estimates.
Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, earlier this week, tabled the third supplementary estimates for fiscal year 2023-2024 in the House of Representatives. In a statement to the House, Dr. Clark said the estimates will provide a total expenditure of over $1 trillion.
The third supplementary estimates provide for total expenditure of $1,094,387 million, which is an increase of $58.2 billion over the second supplementary estimates. And this will be financed by tax revenues, non-tax revenues, a grant, as I will mention later.
Dr. Clark, in his statement, indicated that financing of the estimates is programmed from a projected increase in revenues and grants.
Madam Speaker, the financing of the third supplementary estimates is programmed for a projected increase in revenues and grants by $43.1 billion, primarily consisting of an increase in tax revenues of $35.8 billion, non-tax revenues of $6.1 billion, and grants of $1 billion.
In addition to compensation restructuring, Dr. Clark also mentioned other areas the estimates will cover.
It deals with additional debt service costs as a result of the increase in costs of servicing external debt, and that total amount is $25 billion. So $37 billion compensation of employees, $25 billion additional financing costs, and then $1.4 billion to recurrent programs, and $0.6 billion for other outflows, which is primarily loans to public bodies. And that represents the summary of the third supplementary estimates.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, September 28, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.89. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $117.20. The pound sterling traded for $192.59, and the euro sold for $167.81. In GSE trading, the GSE index declined by over 2,429 points. The junior market index advanced by over 11 points. The combined market index declined by over 2,157 points. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by over 368 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 100 stocks, of which 50 advanced, 35 declined, and 15 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, Access Financial Services Limited, and CAC 2000 Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Diamond Trading Company Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, and the Siboney Group Limited. The overall volume leaders were Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 4 million units, Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 3 million units, and Stanley Motor Limited Ordinary Shares with over 2 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, the mutual fund market did not record any activity. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited was the volume leader with over 26,000 shares. They were followed by Goddard Enterprises Limited and Bank Holdings Limited, which traded 1,908 and 35 shares respectively. In regional business, there has been robust trade taking place between Barbados and fellow CARICOM members Suriname. The Prime Minister's Special Envoy to Guyana and Suriname, Alphael Wiggins, says the Dutch-speaking CARICOM state has been helping Barbados with needed resources.
There has been increased exports between the two countries in the areas in terms of from Suriname to Barbados, in the areas of heavy fuel oil being imported by BNOC for API. And that's very, very important. Also, because our sand dunes are expiring, we have been importing silica sand, a lot of silica sand from both Suriname and Guyana to help in our construction industries, etc. And we know that all countries are now having a building boom, and that silica sand is very important.
In international business, with the growing chances of a partial federal government shutdown, here's a look at how it could impact everyday Americans.
Air travel. If Congress doesn't fund government operations before midnight on Saturday, the Federal Aviation Administration estimates it would have to furlough more than 17,000 employees. TSA screeners and air traffic controllers would still be required to work, but they would not get paid, and absenteeism could be a problem. The U.S. Travel Association said the country's air travel system would be hampered by more flight delays and longer screening lines.
The consequences would be disruptive and dangerous.
As for the overall U.S. economy, data this week showed that it continues to see a solid pace of growth and that business activity appears to have gathered speed. But with potentially hundreds of thousands of furloughed federal workers, a government shutdown could sap the economy's momentum and dim the outlook for the rest of the year.
In market data for oil prices edged higher and were heading for a gain of 2% for the week, driven by tight U.S. supply and expectations of strong fuel demand in China during the Golden Week holiday. Brent futures were up 42 cents to $95.80, while West Texas Intermediate crude gained 51 cents to $92.22 per barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has identified the local fashion industry as a catalyst for economic diversification, employment creation, and foreign exchange generation. More in this report.
And on Thursday, Minister of Trade and Industry Paula Gopiskun distributed 50 Lotto system packages to participants of the Jimmy Boot pattern-making sewing class held earlier this year. The donation of the pattern-making kit to local tailors and seamstresses is aimed at contributing to business growth, employment creation, and revenue generation in this sector. Minister Gopi Skoon says she saw the economic advantage in making the kits available for the participants of the pattern-making sewing class.
You could probably find yourself sharpening your skills where you could probably do sewing and pattern making and sewing from your home. Or you could find yourself become a little bit more skilled so that you can join a garment factory, a garment establishment. Or it may just be that you can now begin to sew things for your own family and thus save some money as well.
News out of Grenada. Caribbean leaders are calling on developed countries to honor their commitments to climate change adaptation funding. They say CARICOM is capable of handling the money. GBN News has the details.
So yes, Simon, it is about, in the words of the famous actor Tom Cruise, show me the money.
Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, keynote speaker at the second Caribbean Small Island Developing States, SIDS high-level dialogue on climate change on Thursday, where he called for developed countries to commit to accessible funding for climate change.
It is about showing us the money. And we use the word operationalize the funding. That sounds like a big term to me if I'm an average guy. It's simple. Show me the money. Give us the money. CARICOM is well placed to manage the trust funds. OASIS is well placed to manage the trust funds. SIDS is well placed to manage the trust fund. No disrespect to our development partners. The trust fund doesn't have to be in Germany. It doesn't have to be in South Korea. It could be with us. And that is what we're asking for.
Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, Simon Steele, echoed the Prime Minister's calls for countries to honor their financial pledges, zeroing in on how close the world is to the year 2030, the target year for the achievement of a number of climate goals.
The push needed to facilitate access to the technology and capacity needed to deliver on the energy transition. Our collective journey towards a clean energy future is not only a moral obligation, but it is also an economic opportunity.
Prime Minister Mitchell shed a grave light on implications the current climate conditions can have on Grenada if detrimental behaviors continue.
So this is a fight about giving us the opportunity, 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, to continue enjoying Grandlands Beach. And make no mistake about it, Simon was part of a team that worked with New York University that has shown projections that says by 2050, this beach will disappear. This is a picture of the Carnage. It says by 2080, there will be no Carnage.
The second Caribbean SIDS meeting concludes on Friday. It is an important event bringing together leaders, policymakers, experts, and stakeholders from across the Caribbean region to discuss and address the challenges posed by climate change ahead of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28, which will take place in Dubai from November 30th to December 12, 2023. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
In international news, U.S. President Joe Biden has launched a scathing attack on Donald Trump, the former president and Republican challenger he could be facing in the next election. Biden also issued another warning about what he calls growing threats to American democracy, blaming Trump and his supporters. Al Jazeera's John Hendren reports.
The White House billed it as a major address on democracy. But President Joe Biden's speech was also a shot across the bow of Republican rival Donald Trump and his MAGA movement, and a preview of the theme of the president's re-election campaign.
Democracy means rule of the people, not rule of monarchs, not rule of the money, not rule of the mighty. Regardless of party, that means respecting free and fair elections, accepting the outcome, win or lose. It means you can't love your country only when you win. Democracy means rejecting and repudiating political violence.
That was a clear reference to the January 6, 2021 insurrection, fomented by Trump, which led to his second impeachment. Days ahead of a possible government shutdown over the demands from Trump's allies in Congress, Biden accused MAGA Republicans of destroying faith in American institutions. Biden said every generation must protect democracy, and he made clear what threats this generation faces.
There's something dangerous happening in America now. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy, the MAGA movement.
Biden made the address as he announced federal funding for the John McCain National Library, named after the late Arizona senator and Vietnam prisoner of war. He was both Biden's political adversary and his close friend. Biden was introduced by McCain's widow, once a loyal Republican wife, later a member of Biden's Democratic administration.
John would have hated if we'd made this occasion just about him, but instead he would have wanted to make it about what is most important, John's constant mantra of service to a cause greater than one's self-interest.
It is an honor to serve the American people.
McCain died in 2018. In the years since, the country's divisions have only sharpened.
It's no accident that Biden chose Arizona for this speech. It is a key election state that Trump lost in 2020 and that Biden hopes to win again in 2024.
Hours before Biden spoke, House Republicans held a hearing on whether to impeach him. Another day of contrasts and clashing political realities in a deeply divided America. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Tempe, Arizona.
In sports, Esports are a part of Asian Games for the first time. Competitive video gaming is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's proving to be among the most popular events in Hangzhou 2023. Al Jazeera's Andy Richardson reports.
No longer on the sporting sidelines, gaming is now embedded in the mainstream. Asian Games titles are being fought for in the virtual battlegrounds of esports. China winning the first medal event, beating Malaysia in the Arena of Valor final.
We've always dreamed of actually having esports to be included as an official sport, and of course part of the medal tally for Asian Games, and we're very fortunate as it is our first entry, and we've been given the opportunity to actually have 7 official events for the medal tally.
Hangzhou's 5,000-seat esports arena is a daily sellout, with online audiences in the tens of millions. Wang Yubo made a 500-kilometer trip to the host city specifically to watch esports.
The game Arena of Valor has been popular all over China since I was in elementary school. It requires a lot of skills, but it's very easy to get started. There are many elements of Chinese culture in the game as well, so everyone likes it.
An esports-themed hotel is one of Hangzhou's latest innovations. The estimated esports revenue in China alone topped $10 billion in the first 6 months of this year.
I
think more and more people are beginning to pay attention to esports. Being an official part of the Asian Games will greatly help its development. I opened this hotel because esports has huge room for growth in China, and the number of enthusiasts is increasing day by day.
Now, the International Olympic Committee is keeping a close eye on esports. Its effort to attract younger audiences saw surfing and skateboarding brought into the last Tokyo Olympics, and in Paris next year we'll see breaking as well. Now, this year the IOC did launch its own esports series, and that culminated in a finals week in Singapore. That competition involved virtual versions of real sports. IOC President Thomas Bach saying he wished to avoid what he called killer games that could promote violence. Games Bach may not approve of have been included in Hangzhou. It's already been confirmed esports will return at the next Asian Games. Andy Richardson, Al Jazeera.
My name's Gabrielle Hindley and I'm the co-captain of the Canada Ravens. We're here to compete at the North America's Championship. We really want to come into this tournament strong and show that we are a force to be reckoned with, and to keep pushing the game of rugby league and keep pushing the skill up in North America.
The team has already qualified for the World Cup.
It's great to be able to compete at that level, and we want to see that there becomes a larger competition on this side in North America and into the South America as well, in order to keep growing the sport worldwide.
Time now for the entertainment news with Brittany Clark.
Welcome back to PBCJ's E-News. I'm your girl Brittany, sitting in for Alicia Steele, and I'm here to spice up your day with some sizzling headlines. First up, Sterling Gospel Awards set for October. Baby Sham and the Bounty Killer drops a joint EP and a documentary, and a Dominican filmmaker gains international recognition. Stay tuned and find out why. The 7th staging of the Sterling Gospel Music Awards is scheduled to take place on Saturday, October 7 at the Swallowfield Chapel in St. Andrew. Organizer of the event, well-known media practitioner Basilia Barnaby Cuff, says getting sponsorship has been challenging over the years. She says this year she sent dozens of proposals to companies, and thankfully several of them have answered the call. KFC, Interactive Payroll Solutions, and the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport are among those supporting the event, which has been held annually for the past 7 years. Mrs. Barnaby Cuff told the press, quote, "I knew that this was something that God wanted for the gospel music industry in Jamaica. And without sponsors, this would have not been possible," unquote. Keep the faith, Mrs. Barnaby Cuff, and congratulations to all the artists who are nominated this year. Bounty Killer and Sham, also known as Baby Sham, finally unleashed their joint EP, Time Bomb. The two longtime artists celebrated the partnership with a launch party at The Lot on Constant Spring Road in St. Andrew, treating patrons to food, drinks, and good vibes with music from their new EP and songs from their long list of hits over the years. Sham says the project took a year to complete, and he says they started in the Bahamas and finished up right here in Jamaica. The EP was exclusively produced by the legendary Dave Kelly, and it's paired with the visuals of a documentary detailing the work they put in, sprinkled with the flashbacks of the two artists.
Money I got dash when people I got shot when party a lock. Me no watch clock. No me go live when a girl a wine slap.
Jamaican reggae artist Lila Ike is making a splash on the international scene. The singer is featured on English singer-songwriter Georgia Smith's Falling or Flying album, set for release on September 29. Ike shares vocals on Greatest Gift, which is one of the 16 tracks on the album. The project is being released on the FAM Entertainment label. Dominica is basking in the spotlight after the short film Territory won Best Short Documentary at the 18th Annual Caribbean Tales Film Festival, which took place between September 6 to 22. Territory is a short film focused on the indigenous people of the Eastern Caribbean island of Dominica, the Calinego. It was the first submission by director Jill Joseph to the festival, and in her acceptance speech, Jill thanked family, friends, colleagues, and mentors, singling out CTFF founder Francis Ann Solomon, from whom she drew her inspiration and influence. She says the film is dedicated to her late parents and the Calinego people of Dominica. And it's better late than never. We're sending congratulations, love, and light to Rihanna and her boo, A$AP Rocky. They welcomed another bouncing baby boy recently. They shared the first ever photos of their second son, and the mayor's family portrait was dropped online with the caption, "It's a family thing. Welcome to the world, Riot Rose." That's it for this episode of PBCJ's E-News. I'm your host, Brittany. Remember to live an entertaining lifestyle. Over to you, Simone.
Thanks, Brittany. And that's the news on PBCJ. Have a pleasant weekend.